Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final episode of Let's Analyze the Companions of Dragon Age the Veilguard. I am here not just with one, but two special guests as we talk about the final character. Why don't I have the two of you introduce yourselves, including where have they seen you in my channel before?
You want to go?
Sam,
Okay.
go ahead.
Hi, I'm Samantha. I was in the Dragon Age 2, but most recently I'm in with these guys doing the Wildermyth.
Yeah,
Wildmyth. I don't know if we've
Wildermyth.
agreed.
It was Wildermyth.
Wildermyth. Just hold on, we're gonna edit. I'm in with Wildermyth, and it's a blast. But yeah, that's where you'll see me most recently. And then
You've done a lot of others too, like
yes.
Monster Camp.
Monster Camp. We did that also with Kevin. I was in the oh my gosh, I'm blanking on
Gloomhaven.
Gloomhaven, yes. I always
Yes.
just call it the checker game. So I was like,
It's a little bit more involved than a checker game.
It is very much more involved. That's why I was like, don't say checker game, don't say checker game.
That's why we were losing some of these games. It's not how we're playing checkers.
Well,
It's treating it as a checker game.
I'm here for the entertainment, not the strategy.
Yes.
All right. Hello. I'm Kevin. You've probably seen me, as Sam mentioned, Dragon Age Season 2, Wildermyth, Gloomhaven, and Divinity as well. Divinity
Yes.
2?
That's right.
Harry Potter.
Divinity
Harry
2,
Potter.
and your
Yes.
Michael the Muggle.
Michael the Muggle.
Still Michael the Muggle.
Still Michael the Muggle.
Yeah.
Yes, and very proud of it.
Yes, of course.
It's great to have the two of you here. I will now ask, which character are we talking about today, and why did you want to talk about this person in particular?
Neve and
I was really excited to talk about this character because I was so excited that we were going to get another person from Tevingter, and being part of like getting to like explore Tevingter. For so long, it's always just been like Tevingter, the big bad place. And so I really love that we're going to get to see Tevingter through Neve's eyes and sort of what and we'll talk about sort of like why that's important in a bit, but that's why I was really excited to get her perspective.
the faction that she's a part of really interested me and kind of draws me into kind of her story and just everything, kind of like pinging off of what Sam just said, but tying her faction into that story, which we'll get into as well. It's just probably the more intriguing faction to me.
Mm.
Just to give a high-level summary of Neve, her full name is Neve Gallus. She is a human mage who is affiliated with the Shadow Dragons faction, voiced by Jessica Clarke. If you IMDb Jessica Clarke, she's been in a bunch of shows and movies, including True Blood. She had, I believe, a starring role in Pocket Listening, as well as appearances on Alien Harvest. And Neve was written by Brienne Batty, I think. And yeah, that's like her overall spiel. I'm just gonna pass it on to Sam and Kevin to open things up to however you want to start talking about Neve.
Sure. I think Kevin mentioned, because he did a little bit of research into some of the things that I didn't look into. So about her name, did you want to talk about that? Because I thought that was so cool.
Yeah. So just like there's always like kind of like meaning in names and everything, and sometimes in video games they're more important than or not. So I looked up Neve, like I just did like a Google search, and a bunch of like the results, Neve is a derived form of Latin, which meant snow. And I thought that was very interesting because she's an ice mage.
Yes.
And it's
Yes.
like Latin, Italian, and then I think Portuguese as well. But Latin, and it kind of like ties back into Tevingter because I think they kind of take a little bit of like that kind of like culture.
The Roman,
Yeah,
right? The Roman culture, the way that their architecture is structured.
yeah. So I
Yes.
that was kind of like my first like instance of like diving headfirst into like, okay, who is this? And it's like, besides me failing to pronounce her name correctly, I can put her name into Google and say like, "Hey, what is
Yes.
this?"
Yeah.
And just at like a tertiary glance, like I feel like that's like the name just automatically kind of like opens up to like who, like what she can do, and just being like the ice mage is really interesting to me.
I took Latin and I thought Gallus is probably a Latin word too. And I looked it up and I don't know if how this fits, if it's supposed to fit at all, but apparently the Latin word Gallus means rooster.
Oh.
Or an inhabitant of Gaul, Gaul.
Oh, yeah.
Inhabitant of the location Gaul. So don't know if there's anything to that.
I think the names are important because we've seen how important they are with Tevingter and stuff, like with Dorian Pavas, kind of the way they did like the I think it was a peacock, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Peacock,
and
yes,
so
yes.
and that was very much Dorian. So I feel
Yes.
like we're getting little insights into the name, and it was important. So I was glad he picked up on that because I completely forgot to look up the names because the Tevinters, yeah.
One thing I had mentioned in an earlier character analysis is that I don't think their personalities are at all that similar, but Neve strikes me as the Vivienne of the party right now. They have a very similar feel. Vivienne's very sophisticated, and I think Neve is the same way. She carries herself in such a way. They've got a very similar look. They both are ice mages as well. I think that Neve also is said to be the cynical one.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I don't know, I kind of see a lot of parallelisms between the two, even though I do think that ultimately they're for sure two different people.
Yeah, so definitely. I definitely get like this very like she seems sure of herself, but in like in a humble way that we haven't really gotten to see because a lot of the mages that we've interacted with are very not
arrogant.
all of them, but some of them are. I'm very pro mage here, so I'm trying to. But no, yeah. So we get a lot of that arrogance, but I feel like with the little bit of the gameplay trailer, but also like a lot of her like written stuff, I don't get a lot of that arrogance, and maybe that comes from the cynic and stuff. But she seems to have like this like heart of gold that keeps up quite frequently. That she's a cynic with a heart of gold. But I think what you see most of it is a lot of her stuff is through her actions versus not. She doesn't give like these long, eloquent speeches. It's very much like subtle actions that make you like her, which I think kind of I don't know. I think it's gonna be really refreshing, and I'm really excited because I love that kind of character nuances where you have to pay attention and you have to really get to know them to get them to open up. And I'm really excited. She looks phenomenal. I'm really excited for her story. And then so I guess just to sort of like start off in the too long didn't read kind of where she starts. We sort of see her in Tevingter, and she's been hired to basically solve a series of events. I don't know how much detail I should go into.
Yeah. Well, to lead up to that,
Yeah.
I was going to say that one of my favorite things about her character is her profession.
Yeah.
She is a detective.
Yes.
And I love that because when you think of mages, you think what could their profession be other than being like a scholar or I don't know, but having this role as a detective and just sort of applying her intelligence in this way, I think is super cool. And I always like a good mystery. So, so I feel like that's going to be a really neat angle to explore really in any fantasy based setting that I've played in. I don't know if I have played with detectives much in those settings. So going back to what you were saying, Sam, you're referring to the short story, I believe, from the novel Tevingter Nights. If for those of you who are unaware, this was released a few years ago, prior to Neve ever being announced as being a character in the game, which I think is cool. But going back to you, Sam, about the Tevingter Nights story.
Yes. So basically, she gets hired. Very, very short. She discovers that Venatori are basically getting targeted, and what's happening is they have like a chain around their necks that are getting ripped. And they are getting killed by someone in a gold mask. And I don't want to reveal too much in case people want to explore, but she goes into that. And basically she finds out that they're, well, I kind of have to spoil this. So if you don't want to know, don't listen to this part. But basically what these medallions are their keys to like some sort of vault or like something that was locked away, which turns out to be a demon. And the whole plot of this is that Corypheus, if we roll back, when he was going to get done taking care of the South, he was going to roll up here in the North and basically unlock this demon. So super bad, no good. And what I love about this little bit is that she goes to the Templars. She forms we get to see her relationship with the Templars. She doesn't try and just solve this immediately with magic. She goes to the authorities. Unfortunately, the character that she goes to, which Kevin will love, is super lawful good. He's like, well, I gotta tell my boss. I can't just go with you.
Chain
and
of
so
command.
She's like, it's very much chain. I think her name was Rana, I think is her name.
Okay.
And so she's like, I can't go in with you. I have to go to my chain. We have to see what's going on. And so Nev's like, well, I'm just gonna do it myself then. And so she goes, tries to stop the ceremony, and then Rana comes in at the last minute. And Templars take all the credit, and they like sweep it up.
Classic mage needs to get bailed out.
Whatever. But basically, they stop this ceremony from happening, and so, but we get a little bit of extra plot about Corypheus, which was so cool because, you know, like the what happens after he would have won, and this was his plot. So I'm hoping with how much they've tied the Venatori and Corypheus, we kind of get to see a little bit more of this in the game. Especially if people haven't read it. I think it could be really cool for people to sort of a nice tie-in to like ease her into the story, which I was super excited about. Loved it. I thought it was super fun. Another thing about the story, because I was talking about, is her actions that speak really loud in that story. Is there's a lot of times where she does things where she doesn't have to do it, and she does it simply for the action of being kind. So the guy who originally hired her, he doesn't care about the person that he hired. It was about, you know, I don't want to get rolled into this sort of scandal. He didn't actually care about the person that was in it. But at the end of the story, she didn't need to go, but she went to the guy and said, hey, he was innocent. Like, he wasn't a Venatori. He was a good man. He was trying to change his life around, and he got stuck in like this terrible plot. And he was like, yeah, okay. And she's fine with it. It's fine. But like, she needed to tell him, and she wanted to like clear his name, which I think is, wow. I love that. Love that.
Yeah.
Very good point. She's appeared in a few other things prior to the events of the Veilguard. So I think I had mentioned before in another video that she briefly appears in Dragon Age The Missing, which is that visual novel with Scout Harding and Varric. And also, as of this recording, she recently appears in Dragon Age Vows and Vengeance, the podcast that they released prior to, again, Veilguard. So I feel like of all of the new companions that don't include Harding, I mean, Neve seems to have more appearances overall, from my understanding.
Yeah. Really, like, attracted my attention was her character design. And that's something that I wanted to like touch on a little bit. First off, the hat is just so cool.
It's got like that little like graduation cap kind of situation.
Right,
the
graduation cap.
It's
has,
so
like, the
cool.
veil over the eye.
When I first saw it, I was like, what is she wearing? And then by the end, I was like, I love it. I love it. She's like, it's amazing.
Right. It's very scholarly.
Yeah.
You know.
And then she's got like the like half staff cane kind of like magical rod thing.
Yes.
With like a
Rod, yes.
pointed end, which is really cool.
Yes.
And then of course the prosthetic,
Yes.
which is something that I like. So I didn't read the short or the graphic novel,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I did like in my research into it. I saw a couple slides of it, and when Varric uh, suggested to go get help from Neve,
Mm-hmm.
it seemed like he had a rapport with her already, and the way
Mm.
the prosthetic is described is it's of dwarven make. And I
Yes.
almost wonder if we'll get more into that, like more about their relationship. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
connection there between the dwarven prosthetic
Right.
and Varric? And like, was he there when she needed to get it? Or like,
Mm.
That's cool.
what's the story behind
Yeah.
that? And that was something that I like really like focused in on with like trying to find that out. And
Right.
there's nothing on it yet, but I'm hoping when the game comes out, we're able to learn more about that.
Yeah. I'm also curious if the prosthetic, if its sole purpose is simply to act as her other leg, or if there's other practical features, practical uses from it. I don't know. Is it magical at all?
Also, the design of it,
Yeah.
it's a snake,
Mm.
and as the shadow dragons, they're led by someone called the Viper, uh, and
Oh,
I wonder if that's also like a subtle like character design hint.
If I were to sort her into a Hogwarts house, it would be Slytherin.
Yeah.
So yes, so yes, she's got the green.
Yeah.
She's already got the Slytherin colors, and
She's
all of the snake
beautiful.
imagery. Mm-hmm.
I think she has a pipe in a couple.
Oh, Kevin loves pipes. You have a character
It's
with a
just so
pipe.
cool.
That's fine.
Don't smoke, but I can't deny that it doesn't look cool.
Yeah.
Kind of keeping it going with her aesthetic, and sort of shifting a little bit, because I've been trying to figure out, I don't know if it's been released, but I was trying to figure out where her place was in Tevingter society,
Mm.
because she doesn't seem like she has a high seat just based on like what she does.
Yeah.
And so I kind of agree with some of the other people who are calling her the starts with an L, the is it? Oh my god, I'm gonna have to look it up. Because she had mentioned that she had more Templars in her family than she had mages. So she's not Soparati for sure. And then she doesn't hold a seat because
Mm-hmm.
I think of her relationship with the Templars. I think she's going to be sort of like that middle class with Tevingter. And we've had two extremes with
Yeah.
Tevingter. We had Fenris, the love of my life, and then we had Dorian, also the love of my life. So it's like, we get to see these two. So we get to see Tevingter from like just a normal person, and like, yeah, obviously she's a mage, but I feel like with the private detective stuff that we were saying, we're gonna get a really cool like bird's eye view from her perspective of like what Tevingter is and how she loves her city in a different way, and how like the normal everyday person is just trying to like help the city in their own way, and this is like her contribution. So I think she's got so many layers that that everyone is just gonna like love to dive into. I think if people love Tevingter and they love mages, I think she's gonna be a no-brainer. I do. I think her companion, if they do the companion, like the talk in the background, I feel like she's gonna always be in my party. Always. I feel like she'll have so many cool insights. 100%.
Since you mentioned them by name, I have been hoping, and I'm almost positive they're gonna give us some. I've been hoping that there will be more familiar faces from the previous games returning in this game. Dorian obviously comes to mind, and Fenris maybe. So would be cool to see if they've ever had any interactions with Neve at all. I would love to see that for sure.
Mm-hmm. That would be so exciting to see them again.
Since Kevin mentioned this, do we want to chat a little bit about her faction, the
Yeah.
Shadow Dragons?
Yeah. So I kind of briefly mentioned it's led up by someone called the Viper, our Viper. And pretty much what they kind of stand for, they're anti-slavery in Tevingter. Um, and they like oppose like the corruption and everything from like the higher uh echelons of society. And kind of one thing that I really like that they did is not they don't just oppose like, hey, we shouldn't have slaves. All the freed slaves, they actively work with them to like help establish their life, like their new life, like kind of get them set up so that they can kind of succeed instead of just like, well, you're free now, go off
Good
and
luck.
don't talk to
Yeah,
me anymore. Like,
yeah.
so I thought that that was kind of like a noble kind of aspect of the Shadow Dragons.
Which makes me wonder if Rook is affiliated with the Shadow
Mhm.
Dragons. Can you, by dialogue choices, define whether or not Rook used to be a slave?
Ooh, yeah,
Especially if Rook's an elf.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I don't know. That would be kind of neat.
that's a really good. Mm.
And even if he wasn't, let's say you are a Rook affiliated with the Shadow Dragons, but are not a mage. I When we think of, Tevintr, we think of mages as being essentially first class citizens
Yep.
compared to the non mages. So I'm curious if you are a rogue or a warrior member of the Shadow Dragons, if there's any like insight of what's it like being from that part of society,
Yeah.
I guess, in a world in a city like Tevintr that is so full of magocracy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Magocracy, yeah.
yeah, the meritocracy, yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that's a very good point. I'm really hoping, uh, slightly off topic, but I'm really hoping that like the backgrounds matter more with the story this go
Mm-hmm.
around, so that we can have those like really nuanced sort of choices that I felt like we got in the first one. And they affect this one and more, especially with her character and like where you stand on and how you operate. I'm really excited.
The Venatori, kind of pivoting off of the Shadow Dragons and
Yes.
the short story, they
Yes.
seem to be like kind of a direct, like antagonistic group towards the Shadow Dragons, and the tarot card for uh, Neve, um, as I almost called her by her wrong name again, uh, is actually I I don't it's probably one of the most interesting tarot cards, just because of the mystery behind it. You got, like, Minrathous in the background, um, obviously her with, like, all of her, like, iconic, like, the hat, the staff, and the leg, but then the shadow in the background. The shadow in the background intrigues the heck out of me because there's just so many different ways it could go. Uh, it could be that bad guy group that I can't pronounce, the Venatori.
Predatory.
It could be like a Venatori member. Um,
Oh, yes.
I also saw, kind of like while I was doing research into it, arcane horrors look like
Mm.
that, and
Oh.
that got me
Mm.
thinking of like, what if like a companion dies? Like, what if that's like kind of like foreshadowing something? Or this is all speculation. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But because fans of the series, fans of like this game will know arcane horrors are pride demons who possess mages and dead mages, and they kind of have like that pointed hat, uh, uh,
Yeah.
and kind of like that creepy figure. Then you also have like the shadow of the staff, which could
Mhm.
kind of go either way.
Sure. Sure. I think then that the design of her hat is very purposeful then, because
Yeah.
traditionally a lot of mages, especially in the circle of magi, do wear pointed hats, and by her having a flat hat instead probably is a way to differentiate her from whatever's on that shadow.
Yeah.
Whatever ends up being that shadow. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah. I'm looking at the card right now. I kind of like, so knowing that she's very much like on the side of like detective work and justice. She kind of looks like she is like blind here. You know, they got the cover over her eyes. You can't see her eyes. The justice is blind kind of situation.
Yeah, justice
And
is
then
blind.
just like with her staff placement against the shadow, kind of like illuminating light, or is there like that might be the heart or something, like a frozen heart. I'm just looking into it, but like I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of hidden stuff in here.
I just thought it was just Iron Man's core
Yeah.
on his chest.
You know what?
Doesn't it look
Probably.
like Iron Man's core?
Yeah,
Proof
is that
that
what you're saying?
Neve has a heart, is what it is.
Neve has a heart. Yes.
Her cynic heart.
Yes.
Yeah. I love the tarot cards.
Oh.
But yeah, I think there's a little insight in there that people can sort of break down and speculate for sure.
I agree.
She's just got such a great look. Such a great look.
It's already iconic. Like,
yeah. And the way that her voice actor like speaks, it's so, I don't know, it's very dignified.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? And it's just very,
It gives me like Cassandra vibes. Just like Cassandra wasn't arrogant, but she had an authority to her voice that you just love to listen to.
Yeah. I think she reminds me of a mix between Vivienne and Cassandra.
I can see that for sure.
Yeah, totally. And what I really like about her is that it seems that you meet her very early in the game. I think that is my understanding. That is essentially the prologue or the introductory mission.
Oh, perfect.
That
cool.
you end up meeting her. So it is pretty cool that she's already established in your party from the very beginning. One thing I always like to chat about with these analysis videos are the romances with these characters. So do any of you have any thoughts about what it would be like romancing Neve?
I think I might romance her, because I feel like if you romance this character, you're gonna get a whole different side of her. I feel like when you romance her, you're gonna get, I don't know, just that special stuff where you can only get when you're being really. I feel like you're gonna have to work for it, like you did with Cassandra. Cassandra, you have to work for it. But God, is it so good in the end? It's so good. It's so worth it. And I think it's gonna be the same vibe. I think it's gonna be the same vibe with her. So I really want to see it. I want to see what they do with her so bad. I'm so excited.
We got to see a sneak peek at her romance with Rook in the recent trailer, and it looks like it gets pretty steamy and spicy from the few seconds. So so I think that she definitely is a very appealing choice. I can definitely see the allure for sure just from those few seconds.
I definitely have to. Who's Athenian Team Crow? Lucanus?
Lucanus.
Oh, he's probably gonna be up there too. Let's be honest. He's probably gonna be up there too. Yeah. He looks phenomenal. Yeah, they did a great job. And I love how the cast all looks super different, so varied, so many backgrounds. I feel like we're gonna have so much fun in this game. I honestly do. I know it was taking forever to get here, but I'm hoping that them taking their time, they're really making something special here, because I love Dragon Age. So I'm hoping for the best, because it looks good. Do
you have any thoughts, going back to Neve's romance, do you have any thoughts on what the romance conflict might be with her?
It's got to be something that's tied into like who she is. So it's like something to do with either the shadow dragons or her opinions on maybe even like the magocracy, and sort of getting to see more where she lies on that, because it sort of depends on like where our choices are going to go. And I feel like it's going to have something to either do with how she feels about Tevingter, or something to do with the shadow dragons, or maybe that might even tie into the past. Maybe there's something with this, like this demon, this shadow demon. We get a little Meryl sort
Yeah.
of situation here,
Mm.
where like she's holding back the darkness or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I'm wondering if there's a case, like some sort of mystery that has maybe been unsolved. This unsolved mystery that she's been trying to figure out, and then maybe her personal companion quest is she gets a lead suddenly. Like it was cold for a while, and suddenly she gets a lead, and then she asks you to help her, and then when she finally learns the truth, maybe without really having an idea what it would be, there might be some sort of conflict of interest.
Yeah.
Such that whether it's a conflict of interest against you personally and your relationship, or it's a conflict of interest against the Veilguard, whether you know, I can't imagine what it could be, but I think that would be a really interesting
That sounds
scenario.
so good. That
So-
sounds so good. Where you have to like side with her or something. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got it. That's so good. If they don't do writers, you need to pay attention. Fix it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll take royalties. I'll take royalties if you use it from now until October. Even though it's probably already like gold now. It's already like the gold version now. But you know, if you want to add it in as a DLC,
Yeah.
Love it. Yes.
love to get some royalties. So
I think playing off of the investigator side of her
Yeah.
would be like, it's either like help her solve the case, or like further your own kind of like the main story, like get like an aid with the story thing. And it's kind of like, who are you gonna, like, where are you in your relationship, and who are you gonna just like back her up, and like kind of like stick to that, like, no, we need to like kind of like do the heart of gold thing, or is it more like more selfish and just like, no, we need all the help we can get, this guy has information, we're not going to turn him in, or what, or something like that. I think that would be really, really interesting.
how about in terms of the her interactions with the other companions? Do you see specific companions that she would either get along with really well, or perhaps sort of be at odds with?
I think she's gonna get along with the Grey Warden. I
Davrin?
think,
You think
yeah,
so?
I think Davrin. I think, and Scout Harding. I think, I don't. It depends on where Scout Harding is in like the story, because I don't know if she's still gonna be super sweet, or if like this like basic war has made her maybe a little bitter with like how it turned out in the very end, especially with the DLC that happened.
Yeah.
It really depends on what she looks like, but I think she'll bond with the Grey Warden. I think that'll have some fun interactions for sure. Yeah, Davrin. I was gonna say also the Mortalitasi seems like an
Yeah.
obvious, like that's
Emmerich.
probably got some, 100%. That's gotta have some
You
either
think so?
some tension, or academic interest. Like
I
maybe
think it's
she starts
academic.
talking, and we get to see. I'm really excited for the Mortalitasi. That's gonna be pretty cool. I'm
I
not
could
gonna lie.
see. I mean, they could play it multiple ways, but with the Mortalitasi, because in the like showcase that they did, when Solus was kind of like doing his big ritual thing, she was the one that said like, "Hey, look, like this ritual has already started and it's too big. You can't stop it." Which kind of like gives clues. It's like, okay, she knows she obviously knows what she's talking about, but she's like a beyond an expert in this field. And just kind of like having that kind of arcane knowledge, where does that put her with like someone else who's another like master of their craft within like the arcane knowledge? So like I feel like that's kind of like the obvious, like the two mages from different worlds kind of like talking about their experiences. Um the second one is the Kunari, the dragon
Tosh.
hunter, Tosh,
Yeah.
because Tevingter and the Kuhn kind of have they don't really see eye to eye all the time. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
I kind of am wondering like what that relationship is. It going to be like more tense, like, or maybe they have like a past, or I don't know. There's a lot of like tension that I can see with that side as well, given the two cultures' history.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
When I was chatting with Callista about Balara is a very plucky, kind of free-spirited, optimistic kind of character, and we were thinking maybe she and Neve, who is very cynical, perhaps may clash a little bit personality-wise. However, in the Dragon Age wiki, it says that Nev's favorite food is fried fish.
Yeah.
And the other tidbit of trivia for Balara is that she's a very good cook, and her best meal to cook is fried fish. So I'm like, that's gotta be something there.
Yeah.
There's gotta be something there.
Oh, I love that.
Part of me kind of hopes that there is actually an initial clash personality-wise, and then at some point Nev's like walking around and she's just sniffing the air. It's like, what's that? And then she smells like the fried fish cooking, and then maybe that might be when they start.
Yes, that's
At least,
so good. Just like
I think that would be kind of sweet. Right.
I think taking it back to the Harry Potter houses, a Slytherin Hufflepuff. You can't go wrong with that combination. I'm telling you. And
Yeah.
I can see that now that you guys are talking about this. I can see that sort of being like, it starts off clash. They don't like each other, and then they're best friends by the end. And it's just, that would be so heartwarming.
I think that would be sweet.
Yeah.
That would be very sweet.
Very much.
Speaking of the Shadow Dragons one more time, because they are anti-slavery, do you think that one major world-changing event that could happen in Veilguard is somehow like making slavery illegal in Tevingter, or at least moving the needle significantly towards them abolishing slavery in Tevingter? Or do you think that's probably too huge of a thing to even start to move?
I think it's going to be a topic. It has to be a topic. But I'm leaning towards more of a needle rather than full getting rid of. And I'm kind of thinking back to like how they handled the mages and Templars with Dragon Age 2, where it's like you could make your sides and you could pick which one you wanted, but at the end, like something big happened. I think it's going to be sort of like that. I don't think we'll do anything that will abolish it by any means, but I feel like it would be really cool if we could influence a side and have some sort of input into like what they do in their society. That would be cool. That would be super cool.
I almost think it would be really interesting if they kind of have it as like a not really a hidden option, but like if you do everything like this certain way, you can have an even larger impact on like the slavery aspect, or any of the topics that the others kind of like focus in on. Or you can like go the other way, like you can move the needle normally, but if you like go about like specific ways, like have specific dialogues with different characters, and like I don't know, just like not convince them, but like kind of get them on your side, or at least like see eye to eye, it'll have like an even greater impact, and like kind of have that more onus on like the dialogue options that you're choosing. Like it's not just you're not just having like an interesting talk. It's more like how impactful was that for you, for that character.
Yeah.
And at the
Will
end,
they side with you at the
combine
end?
them all, and then like make it even bigger.
What I'm really curious about is if your Rook is not affiliated with the Shadow Dragons, if you are given the option of at least in the beginning, being a rook who is not necessarily for abolishing slavery in Tevingter, or perhaps is indifferent towards it, which I get is a very controversial subject matter, especially in real life, of course.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So is it going to be a situation where the game's just not going to let you and railroad you to be, oh yeah, slavery's terrible, we should totally, or are they actually going to give you a dialogue option to actually be pro?
Yeah.
So
I
that's what I'm curious about, you know.
I think they will.
You
We've
think they
seen a
will?
lot of the dark themes in the 1 and 2 and 3, and you
Yeah.
are given the choice to sort of have like the bad option, be the bad guy for it. But I think we've seen enough that you can side where you want in the game and let the character and the story play out based on those choices. So
Yeah.
I think we'll get to see people who
Yeah.
like just see what happens for sure.
Because I presume that would be a conversation that would be happening between you and Neve.
Yeah.
Perhaps. And you know, if you did respond a certain way, would she stick around?
Yeah.
Perhaps she will, if you know, if the what's happening with within Thetis is bigger right now than your differing like beliefs
Yeah.
in that subject. So I think that would be really interesting, to have a rook that challenges any of the factions that the companions are affiliated or associated in. So
Yeah, I'm excited. I think I definitely do. I think this story seems very heavily narratively influenced. So I'm excited to see what choices they offer us, because I think we're definitely gonna get them. We have to. With a place like Tevingter, it's just where
yeah,
like your morals are very gray, just depending on what you decide to do. I feel like you can't have that story without giving the player an option to participate in all aspects of their culture. So, in certain ways, not that I'm,
yeah.
I'm not saying you're gonna get to own a slave, but I'm just saying. I think you get. I think you'll get to experience it.
I think it would be very interesting to make an argument with Neve or even Emmerich, because you mentioned Emmerich yourself. He has a skeleton named Manfred. Is that considered slavery? Is there going to be an argument between Emmerich and Neve about Manfred and whether Manfred is essentially, because Manfred's technically like Emmerich's like servant. I don't think Emmerich treats him like a slave, but does Manfred have rights? Well, ignoring the fact that he's dead, ignoring the fact that Manfred is not a human technically, or a living human.
But he was.
Know,
so it's like.
But he was.
Yeah.
But the thing is, well, Manfred, the body was, but I think the idea is a spirit is embodying man. It's not like it's Manfred's soul, the person the skeleton belongs to. It's not his soul occupying the body. It's a spirit is now possessing Manfred. So does the spirit have human rights? So I don't know. I feel like that has to be a banter at some point.
Yeah.
Has to be 100. They better. We're just walking around with Manfred, doesn't even pop up. Nobody cares. No, for sure, 100%. Someone's gonna care.
Yeah.
Just real quick, just to touch on it again, characters leaving would be, because it just makes me think of like Baldur's Gate 3, like you go against like the druid village, and like Karlach will leave, you don't get Halsin, like all of that, and like will that like open up other people to join, or like, well, how does that like affect, like that would be really interesting.
I definitely hope that there are ways for characters to leave if they are pushed to that point.
Yeah.
I would hope that they're not going to, again, railroad your companions to have to stick with you.
Yeah.
So I can see Neve leaving for various reasons, for sure.
And even like, you know, they leave and then they, like, you just hear like story bits about them. Like they're still helping, but they're like off, like doing it their own way, and they just kind of separate themselves.
I like that. I do like that too. Yeah,
Mhm.
if they feel like the threat is really that important, but
Yeah.
perhaps, the work environment is
The
work
culture
en-
just wasn't great
the
for
culture.
me.
Yeah, it just wasn't a good culture fit.
It wasn't a good culture
I'm gonna
fit.
have to. Just gonna go ahead and do my own thing, freelance.
Freelance.
Me and Manfred, we just
Me, Manfred.
we just pieced out.
Yeah. For sure. All right. Well, thank you, Kevin and Sam, for
Yeah, of
joining
course.
me. It's always a pleasure hanging out with the two of you. For those of you who are watching, thank you so much for watching any of the analysis videos that I have had on my channel. I hope you had a great time hearing our theories. I hope you learned something. And I think we're all excited to play this game in a few weeks. So, until then, everyone, love yourselves and love each other. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Pivoting off of the short story, the Venerati.
The Venatorians, you
Venatori,
mean,
yeah,
Kevin?
sorry.
I was like,
yeah, the Venator. Venerati.
Yeah, sorry. Neve and the Venerati.
Neve and the
Venator.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah. The Shadow Dragons.
Shadow Dragons.
Oh boy. Kind of pivoting off of the Shadow Dragons and the Venerati.
The Venator.
I can't do it. Sam, you gotta save me. Sam, you gotta save me.
No, Venatori.
gotta bring this up.
Venatori.
I don't-
Reel's about to be crazy.
One more try. This is going in the blooper reel.
Yeah. Venatori.
I thought he did it on purpose.
You know why? It's because in my notes, and I'm like glancing over, I spelled it
spell it?
wrong. I spelled it
Oh,
Venerati.
that's right.
So like I'm like glancing over.
Venatori. Venerati. Venatori.
gonna
Try
roll
one
up
more time, Kevin. If not, then we'll fix it with AI.
The
Venatori.
Venatori.